Slakia. All right, y'all, let's go ahead and get started, man. First and foremost, I'm going to say, call halal Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. That's all praises to the Most High God, the name of his only begotten Son of the world, ignorantly called Jesus Christ, man. And it's Shatari Yadaya from the Sakari Dallas Camp, Sakari DTX, rather. And before we start anything, I want to say follow us on Facebook, IG, Spotify, TikTok, all that, man. Follow us. If you want to give a donation, hashtag, not hashtag, $ Sakari Dallas, like, subscribe, freaking share, super chat, do all that, man. Support the troops, man. So today, y'all can see the title, y'all can see the thumbnail. We're going to go into 10 reasons why I believe that Cornelius is an Israelite, right? And history in the Bible corroborates that. Even just, honestly, you don't even need history and all that. You can just read the Bible and come to that conclusion. But before we even go into that, I want to highlight this comment real fast. Like this is on one of the GOCC videos where we debated brother from GOCC, I guess GOCC Dallas, right? It says the Ak from GOCC, it's from Hebrew Q. It says the Ak from GOCC might not have been a biblical scholar, but I'm here to tell you. Well, and you gotta think about that sentence. He might not be a biblical scholar, aka he got cut up. Right? He got dismantled and destroyed and built, and honestly built back up at the end of it, right? But he got dismantled. Why? Because GOCC believes in basically plantation Christianity with a Hebrew Israelite spin on it, man. But I'm gonna keep going. It says GOCC might not have been a biblical scholar, but I'm here to tell you the way y'all broke down Revelations 2:26 was not it. And the way I broke it down is Christ says we're going to rule, and I'm going to get it in this lesson too. We're going to, if you keep his sayings unto the end, and if you overcome this world, you're going to have power over the nations. The word nations right there goes into ethnos, which is ethnicities, the races, right? That's what that's going into. And he's saying we're breaking that down. Honestly, we're just breaking it down like how it's said. And this is my problem with Christianity / GOCC, which is really the same thing. It's like they would like for you to believe 2 + 2 = 5. It can't just be what it can't. 2 + 2 can't equal 4. It has to be 5, and we have to negate everything just for it to be 5. It's just insulting to people's intelligence and to the integrity of the Bible just in general. Like that, and I don't want to get too deep into that because I'm gonna get into that later into this lesson. But the last part I want to highlight of this comment. It says y'all really be bucking on the fact that we're not supposed to be having our head covered while bringing out the scriptures. Now I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna bust a lot of people's bubbles and a lot of Israelites' bubbles who just spew rhetoric, don't deal with any type of history or historicity of anything or context. Right? I'm gonna bust their bubbles when I say this. In 2022. There's not one Hebrew Israelite commanded to not teach with their head covered. That's not in the book, and that does not agree with history. This is something specifically said, like a camp leader is giving a bylaw to his camp. The camp leader being Paul, the camp being freaking the Corinthians, specifically in the 11th chapter. That's what that's talking about. That's just like if Alazar gave us a bylaw, that's not going to be applicable to all the camps. Just like if Bishop Nathaniel gave a bylaw to his camp, that's not going to be applicable to us. That's not how things work. Paul cannot add unto the law, nor can he take away from it. And I want to go into all 3 of those topics in this series of precepts I'm going to bring up before we even go into the lesson. Let's do this. I'm gonna start here. 1 John. Just keep it real. And I don't understand how Israelites will say that that's a commandment, but we'll read 1 John 3 and 4, and then say this is what sin is. But I'm gonna go ahead and read it. 1 John 3 verse 4. As whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law, for sin is the transgression of the law. For sin literally. The verbatim definition of sin is transgressing the law. Having your head covered Having your head covered while reading the Bible or teaching the Bible is not in the law. And honestly, if you want to go into what's actually in the law, the Lord commanded Israelites to wear mitris. Do you know what a mitri is? A mitri is a turban. Literally a turban, a head covering in the midst of Yahweh. That's what the Levitical priest had on. And y'all are going to tell me, Paul's saying right here that it's unlawful for you to do so? What are you talking like? That, it's one of those things where you don't even understand your own history or culture. Like a lot of brethren are not scholastic at all, and it's a problem. And you wonder why y'all keep getting beat up by these Christian apologists. You wonder why that happens, right? But I'm gonna do this. Romans chapter 4, verse 15. Romans 4, verse 15. This is because the law worketh wrath, for where no law is, there is no transgression. So this is the same person who says if you're teaching with your head covered, you dishonor your head. So Paul says in Romans chapter 4, verse 15, where there is no law, there is no transgression. So you're telling us it's a sin for us to teach with our head covered. Paul's saying opposite of that. Paul, and that's verbatim. Paul is saying opposite of that. The same person you try to flock to make your God. And I'm gonna say what is a lot of Hebrew Israelites' God is Paul. At the end of the day, it is Paul. Y'all are still in the Christian church. Y'all are still old bottles. I'm gonna do this, and then we're gonna go back to what was it? Corinthians. This is Deuteronomy 4, verse 2. This is the law. It says, Deuteronomy 4, verse 2, ye means you, ye shall not add unto the word which I command you. If you're going to say that Paul gave a commandment, you're saying he added to you're saying he's a sinner now. You're saying he broke this commandment. That's what you're saying. And if you go in Philippians chapter 3, Paul says he kept the commandments blameless, being a Pharisee of the strictest sect. If you're saying 1 Corinthians 11 is saying that saying he's giving us a commandment, us in 2022, even though that was written to the church of Corinth. If you're saying we're transgressing that, you're saying he's adding to the commandments. And honestly, you're adding to the commandments now when you do that. Imagine that. Now you're a sinner. And here's the thing. I wanted to bring that up because that's been like the last few videos, the ones that's been picking up some steam. We got Israelites saying, "Oh, y'all are sinners, y'all are false prophets because y'all preaching with y'all's head covered," and that's madness. We're false. Everything we said, we brought a whole bunch of Israelites into this truth and told them that they're Israelites. And since we had our head covered, now we're false prophets. Congratulations, you not only broke Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 2, you also falsely accused us of being false prophets. Being called a false prophet and being accused of that's a sin worthy of death. And in the law, if you accuse somebody of a sin and it's not true, you are to bear that judgment. So congratulations, you played yourself. That's why you're not supposed to be rash with your mouth. And I don't understand how people come into this truth and not understand that. Understand that let me just slow down and not try to be the one trying to point fingers at people all the time when I don't know anything at all. To people who actually do this, and unlike you who sit at home and do nothing, right? And I'm not trying to say, oh, everybody just does nothing. That's not what I'm saying. But people who sit at the house and literally do nothing for their nation, who take their fringes off, who are only an Israelite during the weekend, y'all's opinion matters nothing to me, bro. nothing at all, bro. Because it means nothing whatsoever. And not only does it mean nothing, it's also blasphemous. So let's go into 1 Corinthians. What is it? What did Alan Cooper say? Ecclesiastes 4. I can't hardly read that with my laptop. Let me see. Ecclesiastes 3:14. Know that whatsoever God doeth, it shall be forever. nothing can be put to it. Oh, wow. Nor anything taken from it, and God doeth it, that men should fear before him. All right. And men, and that's really going back to Deuteronomy 4 again, but men should also fear adding unto this word. You see that being discouraged throughout the entirety of the Bible. Even in Revelations, I think the very last chapter talks about that. I think chapter 22 talks about that. When you where it says you add unto the word, you'll add unto you the plagues, you take away from you, take away your part. You should be weary of doing things like that and accusing people of doing that. So let's go into this. This is 1 Corinthians, and honestly, I gotta say this point too before we go any farther. Christians are right about y'all, bro. Like, how did I say Hebrew Israelites? A lot of y'all Hebrews, y'all cherry pick scriptures. You were cherry picking scripture because what your breakdown of 1 Corinthians 11 doesn't go with the chapter. It doesn't. Like, it doesn't go with the history of what it's talking about, and also just literally just doesn't go with the context. It doesn't match the pericope. So let's look at this. This is 1 Corinthians 11, verse 2. It says, "Now I praise you, brethren, that you remember me in all things and keep the ordinances." The what? What is this? An ordinance. An ordinance is a bylaw over what? A camp, a church. This is what he gave as I delivered them to you. This you isn't your black ass in 2022. This you right here is not you at all. And y'all put y'all's chin out for these apologists really to rock y'all. And people like, and I'm not even trying to big up myself. People who actually study history, people who study history and study how things move and the biblical context matching up with the history. People who study things like that, we would be a problem for y'all, bro. We would be bringing a lot of y'all back to the Christian church. I'm just gonna say it how it is. We would be bringing a lot of y'all back to the Christian church. Verse 3. "But I would have you know that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Christ is God. Every man praying or prophesying with his head covered dishonoreth his head." Now, when you go into this word right here in the coverings, it's going into a veil. This specific veil that they had during the Hellenistic period and the Roman period. That's what this is talking about. Anybody can Google that. Anybody can pull that up. And even if he was saying that, that's not a law. So let's jump down and let's stay in context. Let's jump down all the way to verse 16 because brother 2D put that in the chat. Verse 16. Because it's about to bust a lot of people's bubbles. Verse 16. "But if any man seem to be contentious," or if somebody wants to argue about this, anybody wants to go back and forth about this specific topic about the head coverings, "we have no such custom, neither the churches of God." So this is not our custom. This is an ordinance which I'm giving to you, the church of Corinth. That's why it says neither in the church of God, because you don't see this nowhere else in the Bible. If this was such a hefty commandment, if this was such an important topic, why does Paul only say this to the church of Corinth? What about the church of Philippi? So they're not supposed to know about this? What about the church of Ephesus? They're not supposed to know about this? Thessalonica. Timothy's not supposed to have this wisdom. Titus ain't supposed to have this wisdom. None of the other apostles have this wisdom except this one specific church that Paul told this ordinance to. Like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing, guys? What are we doing? It's just madness. That's a logic cut instead of just having to go to context. That's a logic cut. If that was so important, why wouldn't he tell all of these people that? Madness, right? But let's jump into the lesson, man. Support the troops, like, share, subscribe, super chat, $ Sakari Dallas, Cash App. Moving on, rather, because that was. And I want to say this one thing before we move on, actually, right? So I told the brother, I said, like, would you like to come on the live show and talk about it? If he wants to come on after the lesson, right? Brother can hit me up. That's perfectly fine. We can have a respectable dialogue, but it's not going to go in your favor. I'm just saying that to you right now. So now we're moving on. Let's go into the first point. I want to hit Isaiah 53:8. This has been my new staple, and I love it, right? So we're going to go to reason number one why why I believe Cornelius is an Israelite. The first point is because prophecy disagrees with Christ dying for him. This is the first point I want to make. All the prophecy we're going to go into, the prophecy is about what's going to happen to the Gentiles in the end time, who the new covenant is given to, and the temple of God and the temple worship. All that disagrees with Cornelius being a Gentile. So let's go into it. All right, this is Isaiah 53, verse 8. It says, this whole chapter is talking about the suffering servant, which is Christ. He was taken from prison and from judgment, and who shall declare his generation? For he was cut off out of the land of the living for the transgression of my people. Who was Isaiah's people? The Israelites. Was he stricken? So the prophecy about Christ dying, and specifically dying for transgression, actually things that are in the law, right? Not Paul's writings, but things that are in the law, right? Him dying for actual sins like Torah transgressions. It says he was going to die for Isaiah's people. So let's look at that word for my people in the Hebrew. I always bring this out because I love this. Like, a Christian can say nothing against this. All right, let's look at this word. Let's look what it means. It says, my nation, my people, nation, persons, members of one's people, compatriots, countrymen, kinsmen, or kindred. So this is the people who Christ died for. Matter of fact, look at this. Strong's definition. It says a people as a congregated unit, specifically a tribe as those of Israel. As those of Israel. So that's what this is talking about. That's the nation, or my people in that context, who Christ is coming to die for. That's a cut that Christians can't argue against. And if it was to say anything else, if it was going to include anybody else, where is the provision for that? Because every time we bring this out to a Christian, we're limiting God. Us Israelites, we don't limit God. We just believe what he says. If he didn't say salvation is for you, or Christ's death is applicable to you, we're not going to believe it. You want us to change God, and we're not going to do it. Ever. That's never going to happen. So let's do this. Let's go a chapter over. One chapter over, right? This is Isaiah, because I'm just going to skip to the point. Isaiah 54, verse 3 is, thou shalt break forth on the right hand and on the left, and thy seed, Israel, shall inherit the Gentiles. When you inherit something, what are you inheriting? A possession. You're possessing these Gentiles. You're possessing these heathen, these goyim, these nations. That's what we're possessing. So how then can salvation be for everybody? How then can Christ's death be for them to be part of this kingdom? And by this kingdom, I mean this rulership that cannot be. This cuts the ideology of Cornelius being an actual, literal, natural-born Gentile. That's a cut. Because if it isn't a cut, now the Bible's contradicting itself. And what's funny is a Christian would have to say that then. And I've heard them say we have so much footage about it. Well, the Bible contradicts itself all the time. Of course it does when you're getting cut. Of course it does. Of course it does. So look at this. Because I also had a Christian tell me this last week when we brought this out. It says, I see shall inherit the Gentiles, and it says, and make the desolate cities to be inhabited. So they said that this has happened already, right? I was saying, show me where the desolate cities have been inhabited, where Israel's been restored as a nation. And guess what? You can't do that. You can say those people over there are Israelites, but then you go to Luke chapter 21, and then there's a problem. And then they don't even own all of the promised land, which is the Nile to the Euphrates. So when does this happen? It hasn't happened. So if this is eschatological. It's eschatology. This is an end time prophecy. This something's going to happen in the future, which also goes into what we were talking about in Revelation chapter 2, verse 26, about us ruling over the Gentiles. This is what that's going into as well. So let's prove when these desolate cities shall be inhabited. Let's go to Isaiah 61. Let's go to the gospel. They say we don't teach the gospel, right? I love the gospel. It's great. Isaiah 61 verse 1. It says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because the Lord hath anointed me to preach good tidings unto the meek. He hath sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to them that are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of Yahweh," or the Lord, "and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all that mourn." So in the gospel, there's a differentiation between those who's supposed to be taking part in the acceptable year of the Lord, and specific people who are going to be taking part in the vengeance of our God. The vengeance of our God is the destruction and the abasement of the heathen that's always ruled over us. This has not happened yet. Nobody can say that this has happened already. Like come on, brother, you can't. So as long as this is here, that now poses a problem for the Cornelius being a non-Israelite. And we're going to keep going, right? Because verse 3 is the point as well. Verse 3, verse 4, verse 5, and verse 9. It says, verse 3. Can y'all see that? Yeah, y'all can see that. It says, "To appoint unto them that mourn in Zion." So this lets you know who's the gospel for, who's the acceptable year of the Lord for. It's for Zion. It says, "To give unto them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they," the Israelites, "may be called trees of righteousness, the planting of Yahweh, that he might be glorified." And look at this, because we already proved that this hasn't happened yet. You can't go in history and show this happening already. Verse 4, "And they shall build the old waste." That's the desolate cities. It says, they shall raise up the former desolations, and they shall repair the waste cities, the desolations of many generations. And strangers, well, that proves what I was saying before in Isaiah 54, verse 3. Verse 5, it says, "And the strangers shall stand and feed your flocks," the other nations, the natural-born Gentiles, the people who do not descend from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and strangers shall stand and feed your flocks, and the sons of the alien shall be your plowmen and your vine dressers. Why? Because they're going to work the fields. It says in verse 6, is, "But ye shall be named the priests of Yahweh. Men shall call you the ministers of our God. Ye shall eat the riches of the Gentiles, and in their glory shall ye boast yourselves." So you're seeing another disparagement of the other nations. They're going to look at us as the people, as they're going to look at us as the ministers of God. We're going to eat their riches, and we're going to boast in that. So if, like I said before, if Cornelius is a natural-born Gentile, he would be the ones looking at the children of Israel, saying that y'all are the priests of the Lord, y'all are the ministers of God, and they're gonna boast about abasing him. If that's what Acts 10 is talking about, which doesn't make no sense. Now I'm gonna jump to verse 9, and then I'll be done with Isaiah 61 for the most part. And it says, "And their seed, the Israelite seed, shall be known among the Gentiles, and their offspring among the people. All that see them shall acknowledge them." The Gentiles shall acknowledge them, "that they are the seed which the Lord hath blessed." So Cornelius, if he is a natural-born Gentile, would be acknowledging to the Israelites that y'all are the seed which the Lord hath blessed and not us. That poses a problem. That's problematic. It's problematic. It doesn't work. It doesn't work with the unstable doctrine of Christianity. It doesn't work with the unstable doctrine of the plantation Christianity that's been propagated through the Christians who enslaved us, the Christian apologists now, the Baptist Church, hell, GOCC, the other Hebrew individualites who want to save our oppressors. That's problematic. It's problematic. It's a problem. Now let's go to 2 Samuel, and let's build the premise. Let's build the premise right quick. I want to look at this verse. I want to look at these verses on a spiritual aspect and a physical aspect to make a point, to make 2 points. This is 2 Samuel 2, verse 12, and it says, and when thy days be fulfilled, and thou shalt sleep with thy fathers, I will set up thy seed after thee. It's talking about David's seed. Set up thy seed after thee, which shall proceed out of thy bowels, and I will establish his kingdom. Right? Because people are going to say that's Solomon, but this isn't talking about Solomon. This is talking about Yahushua, a descendant of David. And the next verse is going to prove it. It says, he shall build an house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. Now, Solomon's kingdom did not last forever. But whose kingdom is going to last forever? Yahushua's. We know that through Daniel 7, Daniel 2, and all the rest of the prophecies that talk about Israel's kingdom being established forever. And their king and their prince unto them being Yahushua Mashiach. So let's look at this. It says, we're coming back to this verse, but I want to read this to prove that it's talking about Christ. It says, I will be his father, and he shall be my son. If he commit iniquity, I will chasten him with the rod of men. This did not happen to Solomon. And we know the word of the Lord does not go out vain. It will go out void, rather. He's not about to just say something that's not going to happen. Is I will chasten with the rod of men and with the stripes of the children of men. That did not happen to Solomon. But who did that happen to? Yahushua. So contextually, this is talking about Yahushua. But it says he shall build, in verse 13, he shall build a house for my name. Right? Let's look at this house. Let's look at this house from a physical and from a spiritual aspect. Because we see the spiritual temple of Yahushua in Revelation chapter 11, and we're going to go to the law to show the physical aspects of the physical temple that's going to happen later in eschatology or the end times. Let's look at the spiritual aspect first. This is Revelation 11, verse 1. And there was given me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood, saying, rise and measure the temple of God, the spiritual temple of God, and the altar, and them that worship therein. These people are going to be the ones worshiping therein, which is also going to play a part in the next set of precepts we're going to bring out. It says, and measure the temple of God, and the altar, and them that worship therein. But the court which is without, it's like I read that wrong. But the court which is without the temple, leave out. Without the temple, leave out. Why? It says, and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles, the other nations. That they're outside of that. They're not inside worshiping. They're not part of this. They're not part of the spiritual body of Yahushua. They're not part of the spiritual temple of Yahushua. They're on the outside of that. They have nothing to do with any of this, bro. Nothing. And it's going to get even clearer when we go into the physical aspects. But looking at this is saying, if you deal with what this is saying spiritually, this is letting you know that if Cornelius is a natural born Gentile, he's without this. He's outside of this. That's problematic. That's very problematic for your understanding. And honestly, it's like the more precepts we bring out passages, it's just gonna get worse. Let's go into the physical aspect, because we know the sanctuary is going to be set amongst Israel in the end times. We're in our kingdom, we're dwelling in safety. The temple is brought back. That's Isaiah 56, Ezekiel 37. I always bring up Ezekiel 37, but I want to make a quick point just to prove that. All right. Where is this? Ezekiel 37:27. It says, my tabernacle also shall be with them. Yea, I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And the heathen shall know that I, the Lord, do sanctify Israel, when my sanctuary, going into the temple, shall be in the midst of them forever, evermore. So this is talking about the end time. Even this context, even Christian scholars admit that this is talking about end time connotation. So the sanctuary the temple, the tabernacle is going to be amongst Israel in the end times. So during that time, we're going to be keeping the laws of God. Let's look at this. Verse 24, it says, and David, my servant, shall be king over them, and they all shall have one shepherd. They shall also walk in my judgments and observe my statutes and do them. So the law which the Lord gave unto us, we're going to be keeping in the kingdom, in our rulership, in our dominion, along with having the tabernacle. So let's look in the law and see if it excludes anybody. Let's just do that. Let's do that. I'm going to start at Zechariah, one of my close personal favorites, Zechariah chapter 14, verse 21. It says, yea, every pot in Jerusalem and in Judea shall be holiness unto Yahweh of hosts, and all they that sacrifice shall come and take of them and sieve therein. And in that day there shall be no more the Canaanites, that's a nation, that's one nation, in the house of Yahweh of hosts. So this already excludes one nation. So spiritually, it excludes them in Revelation 11, and physically, when the tabernacle's amongst the Israelites, the Canaanites are not going to be a part of that. That's problematic in itself, because then salvation that in itself proves salvation can't be for everybody, because a part of the Christian's understanding of that is that now if you believe in Christ, you become an Israelite. If that's the case, if that's the case, a Canaanite can say he believes in Christ, now he can be an Israelite, but then that's going to contradict Zechariah chapter 14, verse 21. This is the word of the Lord. What you're literally saying through your faulty breakdowns of the New Testament, you're saying that a Canaanite can now supersede the prophecies now. The Canaanite, through your understanding, can now supersede literally the word of God. And that's a problem. That's problematic. And if that's open for one of them, that's going to be applicable to all of them. And honestly, we can show more. Let's go to Deuteronomy. Let's go to an infamous chapter that a lot of Hebrew Israelites break down incorrectly, right? Now, it says, this is Deuteronomy 23, verse 3. It says, an Ammonite or a Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of Yahweh, even to their 10th generation shall they not enter into the congregation of Yahweh forever. So a lot of Hebrew Israelites believe that the congregation literally means living within Israel and living amongst Israelites. But we see in the Bible, after the law was given, other nations, and specifically Ammonites and Moabites, living among us, even in the lineage of David and in the lineage of Christ. But let's look at this to prove what I'm saying. Lamentations 1, verse 10, and we're going to jump back. This Lamentation 1, verse 10, it says, the adversary has spread out his hand among all her pleasant things, for she hath seen that the heathen entered into her sanctuary. We already know the sanctuary is the temple, the tabernacle, whom thou didst command that they should not enter into thy congregation. So what is the temple? What happens in the temple? What happens in the temple? Temple worship. That's the congregation. So we see in Deuteronomy chapter 23, an Ammonite and a Moabite cannot enter into that. So we see in eschatology, we're going to have this physical temple. The Canaanites are not going to be allowed in it. The Ammonites are not going to be allowed in it, because we're going to be keeping the laws in that time. The law is going to be out and it's going to be kept. So the Ammonites are not going to be a part of it, nor the Moabites. So we see three nations not a part of that. So how are we getting that Cornelius is anything but an Israelite? If we see there's still being racism with the Lord, if we still see there being a hegemony of Israel and a stratification of Israel compared or juxtaposed to the other nations, specifically these three we just named right here. who are not going to be allowed in that temple. But then Christ died for them. Does that make sense? Does that, like, this is one of those things where it's like, you propose these things to a Christian, they're not going to know what to do because the law has to be done away with, or the Old Testament has to be thrown out, got to be cut out of the Bible for what they believe to make sense. That's why I said all these things are problematic for people who believe that Cornelius is a Gentile. And when I mean Gentile, I mean other nation. That's a problem. Problematic, right? So let's go into another favorite that I have, because I want to illustrate one more point, then we're going to move on to some other things. Right? Because we're going to hit quite a bit of precepts before we go into Acts 10. Because Acts 10, honestly, you just read Acts 10, it just cuts the doctrine just in general. But I want to highlight all these strong points to where you get, like, these are technical cuts. This is how you this is how you dismantle a Christian. So let's look at this. I always bring this up, but this I'm gonna look at it in a different type of way. It says Hebrews 8:15. It says, "For this cause he is the mediator of the New Testament and New Covenant." This is talking about Christ. Christ is the mediation for that. It says that by means of death, for the redemption of the transgressions that were under the First Testament. So Christ's death is specifically for those who were under the First Testament, specifically to mediate them unto this new covenant. So only the only people who Christ died for, according to prophecy and in Hebrews chapter 9 verse 15, and damn near the whole Bible, are the people who are under the first Testament. And we're going to see why that's important, because we're going to chain this up with two more precepts. As for the redemption of the transgressions that were under the First Testament, that they which are called might receive the promise of eternal inheritance, right? And which is really ultimately the Abrahamic inheritance. The Abrahamic promise is the oath of Abraham, which was never given unto anybody outside of Israel, which is madness. Oh, Lord in Christ. So let's chain this up with some more precepts. Let's get Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 31. So if we see Christ's death being the mediation for this New Testament or New Covenant, let's read about this and then look at some prophecies regarding the covenant and regarding people not having it. This is Jeremiah 31, verse 31. And it says, "Behold, the day is come, saith Yahweh, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah," which this verse agrees with the interpretation that we've been given this entire time about how this has always been for Israel and it's never been for anybody else. And the next verse does too. It's because it says house of Israel and house of Judah, not according to the covenant which I made with their fathers. So there's no, it's the Jewish people and the Israel is the church. That's not what that's talking about, because that don't work with the context. Because the context is not according to the covenant which I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt. So this is talking about the past covenant. And I praise for the Lord for adding this in here, because a Christian could really take that and spin that. But now that he give a historical alley-oop for us, this proves that this house of Israel and the house of Judah, who it's referencing, is talking about the house of Israel and the house of Judah, who is always referenced, the people who originally made that first testament or first covenant with. And it says, which my covenant they break, although I was a husband unto them, saith Yahweh, but this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith Yahweh, I will put my law in their inward parts and write it in their hearts, and will be their God, and they shall be my people. So in this new covenant, in this new covenant, we won't be able to transgress. We're going to be programmed to keep this law, and we're going to be walking after these commandments blamelessly, and without having to work to do it. It's just blamelessly. But watch this. As part of this new covenant, it says, and they shall teach no more every man his neighbor, which is proof that we're not in the New Testament now, because what am I doing right now? That's just a cut. Because the Christians say, "Oh, we're the new covenant." Then why are you teaching and why are you being? Why do you go to church every Sunday if you're in a new covenant? But I digress. It says, "And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know Yahweh, for they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, saith Yahweh, for I'll forgive their iniquity and I'll remember their sin no more." Right, and that, which is also a cut because y'all saying y'all sinners now. How is that happen? How does that work? But like I was saying, it says you should not teach every man his neighbor. Well, everybody shall know the Lord. Everybody who this new covenant is for shall know the Lord. So if we go with the understanding that Christ's death is for everybody, and it's applicable for everybody to bring any nation who wants to be a part of it into the new covenant, which disagrees with the prophecy we just brought out so far. If that's the case, why do we see during Israel ruling the world, why do we see during Israel ruling the world the other nations coming and learning? Watch this. Isaiah 2:2. It says, "And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house, Israel, shall be established in the top of the mountains and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow into it. All other nations shall flow into it. And many people shall go and say, Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways." If the new covenant is for everybody, why are the other nations? If the new covenant is for all nations, why are the other nations coming to learn? That's problematic. If you just sit back and just, bro, all you got to do is read the Bible. Like this is ultimately problematic, because when you see the new covenant being fulfilled, you see that like in Ezekiel 36, where he puts a new spirit upon us and he gives us a heart of flesh. We start keeping the commandments. You see Ezekiel 37, we're going to be keeping the commandments. You see all over the Bible and prophecy about Israel being forced to keep the commandments, right? And that's all relevant to the new covenant, because the new covenant is given it to them at that time, and this is that time period. Why are the other nations coming to learn if they already have it? That's problematic. That's incredibly problematic. And it says, I'm gonna read it again. "And it shall come to pass in the last days," now verse 3, "and many people shall go and say, Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and of his ways." Wouldn't those be your ways? But that's another topic. And we will walk in his paths, for out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. Like it's a cut, man. That's hook, line, and sinker on that one, bro. But yeah, man. Also, like, share, subscribe, super chat, $ Sakari Dallas, man. Yeah, we sow unto you these spiritual things. If you know the rest of that, you know the rest of that, man. If you read the Bible, you know what the rest of that means. So let's look at that's pretty much on point number one. Like, we got all that. That's just point number one, right? So point number two, Christ's words disagrees with the ideology of Cornelius being a Gentile. It just does, right? It just does, and we're gonna get it. It's just 3 verses, really 2 verses, but 1 supporting verse. Matthew 15 and verse 24. Yeah. Like, this is one of those combos. Like, always use this verse and this next verse I'm gonna pull as a combo. Never let a Christian try to, oh, well, he just said that, then any change. We got a combo for you real fast. This is Matthew 15, verse 24. But he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Christ literally said, I'm only sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That's my goal. That's my objective. I always pull it out in the Amplified where he says, I was commissioned by God and sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That's what God programmed Yahushua to do. That's what he said, and that's the programming or blueprint that was sent to him by Yahweh. Or let's say, he changed, or now it's a different dispensation, and Paul's saying something different. But let's look at this. Always use this as a combination. If he said this in Matthew 15, always use this as a combination. Hebrews 13, verse 8. Yahushua the same yesterday, before he was born, before the New Testament was written, right? All this thing, before all that stuff, man. When he walked yesterday and today, and so now he still is for the Israelites, was sent out for the Israelites. His mission is to the Israelites and forever. So his goal never changes. It's never changed. It literally never changes. So if we know that's how Yahushua is, which is really the same thing like how Yahweh is, like in Malachi 3, verse 6. It says, "For I am Yahweh, I change not." Like if the Lord doesn't change, the Lord gave him the mission to do what he was commanded to do. He's repeating his mission in Matthew chapter 15. If the Lord doesn't change and Christ doesn't change, his mission does not change. He was only sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, and that's it. That's it. There's no arguing with that, because the only way to argue this point that Christ changes off of Matthew chapter 15, verse 24, you have to say God changes, because God gave him that objective. You would also have to say Christ changes. Matthew 15. You will have to contradict them scriptures then. That's problematic, bro. That's problematic. So let's get this last one on that. Right? Because I said I was going to go into this later. Revelations 2 and 26. Considering we broke this down wrong. That's incredible, like Chief says. I'm starting 25. Revelation 2, verse 25. But that which ye have already, hold fast till I come. And he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, be a actual Christian, a follower of Christ, to him will I give power over the nations. So he said we broke that down wrong, but let's look at this. Power over the nations. It's the same word for Gentile, ethnos. This is where you get the word ethnicity from, literally. All that. See how it's translated? Gentiles, nation, heathen, people. That's what it means. We always go into this all the time. So the people who follow after Christ are going to get power over the nations. So if what was it? What was I going to say? So going back to the point, if Cornelius is a nation, heathen, Gentile, outsider of like somebody who's not a descendant of Jacob, he's going to get reigned over. But you see salvation being extended unto him. That's problematic, massively problematic. So that's point number 2. That understanding disagrees with Christ and God, which really goes into the first point, because the first point is prophecy, which comes from the Lord, which is thus saith the Lord, disagrees with Cornelius being a Gentile. So let's go to Paul, because this is a lot of it. Hebrew Israelites God right here, bro. And I'm just gonna say it point blank. Period. They believe Paul was the one talking through the prophets. Paul was crucified for their sins. Freaking Paul's the Messiah. That's what they believe in, and it has to be when y'all say the thing to make the point that y'all make off of his epistles that he wrote to his camps. So Galatians 4, verse 4. We're going to run these down because we always go through these. It said, but in the fullness of the time was, but when the fullness of the time was come, God sent forth his son, made of a woman, made under the law, to redeem them that were under the law. So he died for the people who are under what? The law. What's the law? First Testament. Same thing Hebrews chapter 9, verse 15 says. That we, because he's saying that the church he wrote to, that we, the audience, and me, who we know is an Israelite, may receive the adoption of sons. So the adoption is only for the Israelites. That's who it's for. Being brought back and oriented back into the Father. That's who that's for. So that's what Paul believes. So if Paul says this, that's problematic, because if Cornelius was a Gentile, he wasn't under that First Testament. What is this? Black people are not Jews. Yeah. What is it? What's this dude say? He said black people are not Jews. Okay, what's your proof of that? What's your proof of that? I'd love to see it. Let me see. I'd love to see it. Where's it gonna go to? Oh yeah, Galatians 3. My new shotgun scripture that I've been using. And honestly, I'll even say this. Let's say black people aren't the Jews. That doesn't negate away from the lesson. That doesn't negate away from the fact that Christ only died for the Israelites. God only cares about the Israelites. The Israelites are going to rule over the nations. Let's say they're not. Fine. Well, I mean, we know it's true, but let's just say they're not. That doesn't negate away from anything. It's just congratulations. You're just saying some BS to try to just look cool. Man, people are stupid, bro. I don't understand. I don't understand, because that'll be the same people. That'll be the same people. You'll put the link in the chat and then they won't click it, or probably they'll click it and then do a little goofy yuck thing. Like it's ridiculous, bro. People are stupid. People are stupid. But this one, Galatians 3, verse 24, it says, "Wherefore the law was our schoolmaster to bring us unto Christ, that we may be justified by faith." Now, this is a clear cut. Well, the last one was too, Galatians 4 and 4 and Galatians 3, verse 24. These are two precepts that proves that the church of Galatia are Israelites. This proves it, because the law was only given to Israel. That's Psalms 147 and various parts of the Bible and history, and damn near the law, it says it itself, was only given to the Israelites. So how can it be a schoolmaster to everyone? That's problematic. So it says to bring us unto Christ. They say Cornelius was brought unto Christ he was the first Gentile Christian, right? So how can he be? Are we back? Yeah, we back. Y'all put a one in the chat if I'm frozen. Let me see. Am I good? I should be good. Okay, I should be good. If Cornelius was a Gentile Christian, right, like a little non-Israelite, there would be no way he'd be able to be brought to Christ through what Paul says right here, man. It's very clear cut. Let's see. This one's a quick. Well, I mean, I always pull that one. This should get Romans 9. This should get Romans 9 for good measure, man. Like being an Israelite, I like just reading Romans 9 and 4. Just like wake up in the morning, just wake up. It said, to the Israelites pertain of the adoption, the kingdom, the glory, the covenants, the old and the new, the giving of the law, the service of God, the Levitical priesthood, and the promise that applies to us, bro. And this is also why I get mad at these Christians who want to come against us, bro. You're coming against people who are telling blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, the most disenfranchised people on the planet. Y'all are mad at us for saying that we are God's chosen people and that we're not nothing no more, even though the world says we're nothing and we need to stop sinning. Y'all come up against us. Y'all have had Christians, and that's how you know. That's how you know it's all about the fact that we're trying to say we're going to be saved, and the Caucasian man is not going to be saved. It all boils down to that, because you've had Christians come with just straight blasphemous heresies for damn near centuries, even all the way up until this point today. They will never show up. They'll never show up at their churches. They'll never pull up over there and try to debate them. But for some reason, the Hebrew Israelites pose a problem. You know why? Because this is the truth. This is the truth. You can't get stuck on oppression no more, man. We can't be just like looking to our oppressor for breakdowns of the Bible no more. That stuff is over. I put this in the chat in Deacon's class. I forgot if it's Deacon's or Chief's class. I think it was Deacon's class. It was Deacon's class yesterday. The Christian church literally they have one more generation left. Like the age gap is so, because bro, our people of our age, we getting tired of that. Just love the people killing you. Just love the people bombing your churches. Just love the people killing your kids, disparaging your kids, calling them nothing, making them nothing, calling you nothing, putting you at the bottom. Our people are tired of that. Have been tired of that forever. So the only people who are still in that is y'all old fools, bro. Y'all are the only ones left who don't want to let go of master. Y'all never want to let go of master. That's why y'all come at us, because y'all don't want to let go of master, bro. But now it's the time. What did Jeremiah say? It's a cry. It's a cry of war. We telling our people that, like, bro, just repent. The Lord is about to plead our cause, bro. The Lord is ready. The Lord is ready to allow the other Gentiles to destroy these Gentiles so that we get brought up out of this place, man. And I gotta say it in code like that because of YouTube. But you know what I mean. Once we bethink ourselves and come back to who we are, that's when salvation comes. That's when these nations are dismantled and we get the rule. And knowing all that, I take pride in reading Romans 9:4 all the time. I love it. Because that literally means everything was committed unto us. The Bible was committed unto us, bro. We not nothing no more. Like, you got to really think about it, bro. This entire life, I don't care what position you've been in your life. I don't care how you've grown up. But we've always thought subconsciously that we're nothing. But the Bible tells us we're something, bro. That's great. That's the gospel in itself, man. That acceptable day of the Lord, and the day of vengeance for our oppressors. But I'm gonna keep going. This is Romans 9:4, and it says, "Who are Israelites, to whom pertain the adoption and the glory and the covenants and the giving of the law and the service of God and the promises." Right? That's verbatim. So where then? And matter of fact, verse 5: "Whose are the fathers of whom concerning the flesh Christ came, who is overall God blessed forever. Amen." So where then do we get Gentiles being saved there, bro? And when I mean Gentiles, I mean natural born Gentiles. Like it just don't that math don't math, bro. It don't. That math does not math. Let me get Peter saying one, and then we're gonna jump into Acts chapter 10. Right? We gotta hit all the precepts, man. This is Acts chapter 5, verse 30. It says, "The God of our fathers raised up Christ, or Yahushua, whom you slew and hanged on a tree. Him hath God exalted with his right hand to be a prince and a savior to give repentance to Israel and forgiveness of sins." So we see right here a change and showing you a split between the heathen. What's up with my connection today? Am I good? I should be good. I think it went back. Yeah, I'm good. So There we go. I'm sorry if y'all hear my son. He tripping in the background. I think the Christians blessed my internet, man. There we go. the Christians, man. See, they couldn't get IUIC, but they're trying to bless my internet, man. Oh man, Lord in Christ, man. How's your time? But look at this. Look at this, right? Let's go back into the lesson. We're gonna go back into where am I? What are they tripping? I don't know what happened to my internet. That's so yeah. So let's go into okay. Let's go into Acts 10 now. Back to the regularly scheduled program. Right. So we're gonna get the next 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we're gonna get the next 3 points real quick based off of the first verse in Acts chapter 10. So Acts chapter 10, does it come out of the ears? It came out of the ears sometimes. Yeah, bro. I love I love Sakara, New Jersey. But Acts 10 and 1. It says there was a certain man in Caesarea called Cornelius, a centurion of the band called the Italian band. Right. So there's so much stuff we can pull out of this to prove some points. Because I had a Christian who obviously doesn't know anything about anything say, like, look, he was from Caesarea. How could he be an Israelite? So let's look and see what Caesarea is. This is point number 4. It's an ancient city of Israel. That's what Caesarea is. When you read it, it just goes into exactly where it is now, specifically. Right, ancient port, administrative city of Palestine, of the Mediterranean coast, of present day Israel, south of Haifa, whatever. But it's an ancient city of Israel. So we see all the prophecies pointing to Israel being saved, Israel ruling over the Gentiles, Christ coming on to one people, Paul pointing to the fact that all of his epistles are to Israelites, and we see this man was a man who was from Caesarea, an ancient city of Israel. So even looking at this point, how are we coming to conclusions? How are we coming to conclusions to say this guy's he's coming from some strange land, and how could he be an Israelite? That doesn't make any sense. He's literally coming and living in a place called Caesarea, which is the ancient city of Israel. So that's point number 4. So let's go back to verse 1, because that was really quick. And I got some scholarly sources for the next points. Right? Let's go back to verse 1. It says that there was a certain man in Caesarea called Cornelius, is a centurion of the band called the Italian band. So let's go into centurion. Going into that word centurion. Let's see what that is. It says an officer in the Roman army. So a Christian will make this point. This is point number 5. A Christian will make this point. As I see, he was in a Roman army. How can this man be an Israelite? So let's read some scholarly sources, because they're not going to hear from me, your average neighborhood black man. They have to hear it from the oppressor. So let's read what the oppressor has to say about the Roman army. This is, look at this, sons of Israel in Caesar's service. Anybody can just copy and paste. This will pull up. This will be the first thing. So anybody can check my source on this. Sons of Israel in Caesar's service, Jewish soldiers in the Roman military. Watch this. Because they'll say, like, oh, that's talking about, oh, it's going to be the Jewish people. No, it's not. Because it gives you the time period, Caesar's service. And when you read this passage, which I'm going to read, it's going to elaborate on the time period. Let's go into this. It says the participation of Roman Jewish soldiers in the armies of the imperial Rome often goes unrecognized. By who? By Christians who don't want to research a damn thing. That's who it goes unrecognized by. because they think the whole Roman military, like any military, has ever just been synonymously monolithically, but rather that's a better word, monolithically one nation or one people. But you see Rome, especially after all the places that they've conquered, incorporated people into their army. And who was the people who they did that to? The Jews, Israelites. So watch this. It says this is mainly a result of lack of recognition of the part on the part of scholars who wish to use rabbinic sources as a benchmark for Jewish practice in the imperial age. Right? Just going to the Jewish rabbis, like they're the end all be all of anything. Is that it is also difficult to watch this. This is also about to prove what Paul is saying about there's no difference between the Jew and the Greek. Watch this. It is also difficult to identify Jewish soldiers, many of whom had Greek and Latin names. Why did they have Greek and Latin names? Because right before Rome was established as a power like that, the Israelites, the Jews at this time specifically, the Southern Kingdom, went through the Hellenization period, went through the captivity of the Grecians, which when they were forced to become Greeks, they had to forsake their heritage, forsake their culture, and be called after the Grecians. That's why you see Israelites, Jews in this context, having names that are Greek and Latin. That's why that is. This is making reference to the Hellenistic period. I'm reading this again. It says, it is also difficult to identify Jewish soldiers, many of whom had Greek and Latin names, unless they are specifically identified as Jews or are found in a Jewish context, such as a directory inscriptions from a synagogue, right? I think that's the major. I think that's all I need from that. Because honestly, when you go, that's the only part I need. But when you go down to the rest of this, it really elaborates on it about the Jews and the diaspora having a hard time keeping the law, having a hard time keeping the laws in while they were in the Roman army. Just like how you would have Israelites having a hard time, and I mean Israelites, I mean the Black, Spanish, and Native Americans having a hard time keeping the laws in the military of America. And honestly, you look at the military of America, what's the nationalities that they have in those? All of them, just like how Rome had. So it wouldn't be far-fetched to believe that a Roman centurion, a Roman officer, could be a Jew. When we see historical precedent for Jews being in the Roman Empire, as far as the army speaking. So this is also giving you more credence that Cornelius is a Jew. You would smack like this. This would be a freaking slap to the face on a Christian, because I know I've heard all these points I'm highlighting. I've all heard these before. Every point that I'm about to pull out off of verse 1, I've heard a Christian say to me, "There's these are Roman Empire. It's part of the Roman army. How could it be a Jew?" We see it right here. I think we pulled out this source when we debated that we had that video with that study Christian out there in Live Surge, right? So this is showing you how there's precedence for Cornelius, who is a Roman centurion or a Roman officer in the Roman army, to be a Jew. So that's point number 5. So let's go to another one. Let's go back to Acts 10, right? Because it says he was a centurion of the band called the Italian band. So they'll even double down and see he was an Italian. So let's look at some sources. Let's get a Bible verse and let's look at some historical sources on who was in Italy at the time. Let's get Acts chapter 18, verse 2. Acts chapter 18, verse 2. It says, "And found a certain Jew named Aquila, born in Pontus, lately come from Italy." to give you what? Give you what? Precedence that there are Jews in Italy. And I'm going to get a source to back it up because they're not going to just listen to me. They got to hear it from the white man. Jews that lately come from Italy, his wife Priscilla, because that Claudius had commanded all Jews to depart from Rome and came unto them, right? Because there was Jews there and they were being expelled from there. But watch this. This is a Wikipedia article with sources, so people don't just think we're just saying things. This is a source. When you see this number right here, this is a source from a historical document, which are at the bottom down here. Let me see. Right here. These are the sources. So let's go back up to 1. It says the history of the Jews in Italy spans more than 2,000 years to the present. The Jewish presence in Italy dates to the pre-Christian Roman period. So before the New Testament, there was Jews there. So you're losing like feet to stand on as a Christian, going off of saying he's from Caesarea, which is an ancient city in Israel, trying to make a point off of him being a Roman officer in the Roman army. You're losing your stance on that, and then you see the history of the Jews in Italy and a corroborating Bible verse that goes with it. Like you're losing feet to stand on, because it makes our breakdown as far as Cornelius being a Jew even clearer and even stronger, to the point to where the burden of the proof is really going to be on a Christian after this. You're going to have to show at this point, after introducing the prophecies, Christ's words, Paul's words, the place where he was from, showing you that Jews can be in the Roman army, and the fact that there was there's a historical fact that Jews occupied a great population in Italy. There's no, like, we could really stop at verse 1. We really could. At this point, we really, really, really could. But we're not going to. I'm gonna keep going. Let's go back into Acts chapter 10. Because that was point number 6. So let's go back to Acts 10. Now, Acts 10 and 2. And it says a devout man, and this is point number 7 right here. It's a devout man and one that feared God with all his house, which gave much alms to the people and prayed to God always, which really means always. So it says he was a devout man. Who does the Bible ever call devout? Who does the Bible ever call devout? And the actual true answer to that is Israelites. You don't see this with Gentiles, because you can see how many times this word is used. It's pious and dutiful. It's three times used as God as devout, 1 time used as godly. So let's see how it's used and who it's used for. See, Acts 10, we can negate that one. We can negate that one for right now. The first one will be Acts chapter 2 and verse 5. Why is it not on here? Let's go to Acts 2. And then we can go back to that. Yeah, Acts 2 verse 5. And there was dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven. So when we see this word being used, we see it being used for Israelites. That's number 1. Number 2, we see it as Acts 10. But let's negate that one for this moment, because Cornelius's nationality is up for question right now, which we know what it is. But let's just negate that one just for the sake of arguing it. Look at this. Acts chapter 22, verse 12. Ananias, who is that? What nationality is this man? What nationality is this man? That's a Jew. Is a devout man according to the law, having a good report of all the Jews which dwell there. 2 Peter 2 verse 9. We know who Peter was sent to. He was sent to the circumcision. That's Israel. That's his office specifically. So whatever anyway, Peter is going to use the word devout, or going into the Greek word right here, G2152, is in reference to Israelites. So we see this always being in reference to Israelites outside of the context of Cornelius. So what's the only conclusion we can come to? That's 3 witnesses against your breakdown on Cornelius. That's 3. So what am I to believe? The only people who can be devout are Israelites. And even going into that, when you look at that word for pious, pious means like you reverence the Lord. If you want to just break it down to layman's terms, you reverence the Lord. When do you see Gentiles doing that? Where do you see that? You don't see that in the Bible. You see Israelites falling, and you even see, matter of fact, you even see in I believe it's 2nd Ezra, where it's about the heathen that have not kept the commandments. The heathen don't keep the commandments of God. So they cannot be pious. So this is another point proving that he has to be an Israelite. This is one of many. This is one of many. So let's go back to Acts 10. Let's see. And we're going to get this one too, this part too. It says, which gave much alms to the people and prayed to God always. He saw in a vision evidently about the 9th hour of the day an angel of God coming into him and saying unto him, Cornelius. And when he looked on him, Slakia, he was afraid and said, what is it, Lord? And he said unto him, thy prayers and thine alms are come up for a memorial before God. Watch this. Watch this, right? It says thy prayers has come up to a memorial unto God, right? The Prince of Aqua, who that? We can get that in a minute. I believe that's the one, 3 and 36. I believe that's the one. But it says his prayers have gone up to God. So let's see whose prayers go up to the Father as a memorial. Go to Revelation 5. I think it's 7. Do we need the content? We just read the content. No, we can just jump to the point because I'm running low on time. This is Revelation 5, verse 8. It says, and when he had taken the book, the 4 beasts and 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, having every one of them harps and golden vials full of odors, which are the prayers of saints. Who are the saints in the Bible? The Israelites. That's whose prayers go up to the Lord. The Lord isn't hearing a heathen's prayer. He's not hearing that. And I would like for you to show me that. I would like for you to show me a heathen's prayer just being granted like that and brought up to a memorial before God. But we see here saints' prayers being a memorial to God. Psalms 114. Is it 148? I think it's 148:14. Let's prove who the saints are. This is Psalms 148, verse 14. It says, he also exalted the horn of his people, the praise of all his saints, even of the children of Israel, a people near unto him. Praise ye the Lord. That's a smack. What I say is that's a cold cut. It is. That's a cut. The prayers that go up to Yahweh are the prayers of the saints. And here's the thing, right? You see, I just thought about this. Look at this, John 9:31. It says, now we know that God heareth not sinners. So if God's not even about to hear the prayers of a sinning Israelite, you think God is now about to hear a prayer of an Edomite who's murdering his people at this time specifically? That's what you want to believe? If the Lord God of heaven, Yahweh, is not hearing the prayers of one of his chosen people who's transgressed his laws, you think he's now about to hear the prayer of a heathen? Like, get out of here with you. Like, you're going to have to miss me with that one. You're going to have to miss me with that one, bro. That's point 7 and point 8. It says his prayers went up as a memorial to God. Whose prayers can go up to a memorial to God? The saints, the Israelites. And I need to get that. What's that verse the Prince has brought out? 2 Ezra 3 and 36. We bringing that out. Let's do that. Second Ezra 3 verse 36. That's the one. Second Ezra is 3 verse 36. Thou shalt find that Israel by name hath kept thy precepts, but not the heathen. So watch this. Because look at this. It says a devout man, one that feared God. Fearing God is keeping the commandments. That's Deuteronomy 10. That's freaking Psalms 111. That's Psalms 110 verses 10, I believe. That's a lot of places in the Bible where it talks about fearing God is keeping the commandments. But we see Israel by name keeping the precepts, but not the heathen. But I'm supposed to now believe, according to you Christians, and you Christianized Hebrew Israelites, that Cornelius is a heathen. You're going to have to miss me with that. You're going to have to just straight miss me with that. Like, get up out of here, bro. So yeah, let's finish out the chapter. So that's the first 8 points. I'll just refresh them real quick. The prophecies disagree with Cornelius being an Israelite. Christ disagrees with Cornelius. Israelite. The prophecies disagrees with Cornelius being a Gentile. Christ's words disagrees with that. Paul's words disagree with that. The historical context of where he's from disagrees with that. The fact that they're Jews in the Roman Empire takes away any feet you have in the argument of saying that since he's a officer in the Roman army, he can't be a Jew. That's been taken away from you. And that he's from the Italian band. He said, oh, he's from Italy. We've already proven that Jews can be in Italy Jews were in Italy in history and with the Bible. We prove who the devout men are, and we've proven whose prayers goes up to the Lord. So heathen's prayers is not getting heard by God. That's not happening. So that's the first 8 points. You really could have stopped at 1, but these all 8 of those. No, bro. You're gonna have to miss me. So let's read this chapter. Let's see. Acts 10, verse 5. It says, and now send men to Joppa. Whoa. Let's read 4 again and then go down. It says, and when he looked on him, he was afraid and said, what is it, Lord? And he said unto him, thy prayers and thine alms are come up for a memorial before God. And now send men to Joppa and call for one Simon, whose surname Peter. Verse 6, he lodgeth with one Simon a tanner, whose house is by the seaside. He shall tell thee what thou oughtest to do. And when the angel was spake unto Cornelius, and when the angel which spake unto Cornelius was departed, he called 2 of his household servants, and a devout soldier of them that waited on him continually. So you see who's coming with Cornelius? His 2 servants and a devout soldier who waited upon him continually, who's a defense unto him continually. Watch this. It says, and when he had declared all these things unto them, he sent them to Joppa. On the morrow, as they went on their journey and drew nigh unto the city, Peter went up upon the housetop to pray about the 6th hour. And he became very hungry and would have eaten, But while they made ready, he fell into a trance. So this is where Christians started to bug out and started to drink the sinner Kool-Aid to try to say that God told Peter it was okay to eat unclean food, so now everything's clean. But since we know the context of what's going on, let's break that down according to the context. Verse 11, and saw heaven open and a certain vessel descending unto him, and it had been a great sheet knit at the four corners and let down to the earth, wherein were all manners of four-footed beasts of the earth, and wild beasts, and creeping things, and fowls of the air. And there came a voice to him, Rise, Peter, kill and eat. Verse 14, but Peter said, Not so, Lord, for I have never eaten anything that is common or unclean. So you see, hold up, I need to take a sip of this real quick. You see Peter having a vision. He fell in a trance and had a vision of unclean beasts coming down. And I heard a voice saying, Peter, kill and eat. And Peter said, I'm not about to do that because I haven't eaten anything unclean. And I would also make a point to a Christian, if Christ died and everything was made clean after that, why is Peter still not eating unclean foods? But Peter right here says, I haven't eaten anything unclean. And it says, and verse 15, and the voice spake unto him again the second time, what God hath cleansed, that call not thou common. Ooh, that King's English is getting me. Verse 16, but this was done three times, and the vessel was received up again into heaven. So Peter saw this happen three times. He had a vision, happened once, happened twice, happened the third time, and then it just went back into heaven. Peter's like, what the heck? Matter of fact, it says it. What the heck's going on? Verse 17, now while Peter doubted in himself what this vision which he had seen should mean, he was trying to figure out this vision, because it can't be like that. It can't be the Lord telling me to sin. The Lord's never commanded any man to sin. The Jews at this time know that. We know that. The Lord never commanded any man to sin. So Peter's like, what's going on? Why did the Lord tell me to eat something that's unclean? So it says, now while Peter doubted in himself what this vision which he had seen should mean, behold, the men which were sent from Cornelius. How many men were sent? 3. To go right along with the amount of times Peter seen this vision. 3 men went unto him. As behold, the men which were sent from Cornelius had made inquiry of Simon's house, and stood before the gate, and called and asked whether Simon, which was surnamed Peter, were lodged there. While Peter thought on the vision, the Spirit said unto him, behold, 3 men seek thee. That's the breakdown of the vision. It's not that you can now eat unclean foods. It's similar to the people who are regarded as unclean unto you. They are now allowed to be made clean. What is that talking about? That's talking about, matter of fact, it's going to say it later, but I want to elaborate on it. That's talking about our Israelite brothers who went through the diaspora, who went through the Hellenistic period, and which we don't even regard as our people really, or treat them lesser, right? They now through Christ's death, they can come back into the fold and should come back into the fold and be treated just like you. And we see a difference. We see a difference between our brethren showing preferential treatment towards the Jews in Judea and the Israelites who went through the Greek diaspora and the whole Hellenistic period, which we're going to get a little bit later when that's even said later in this chapter. But you see that happening. That's the break. I wanted to say it now because that's the breakdown of that vision. Not know you can eat unclean foods now. It has nothing to do with that. The Lord's never commanded any man to sin. And why would the Lord contradict himself in the first place? The Lord doesn't change. Malachi chapter 3, verse 6. He doesn't change. So now he's not about to turn some foods. He's not about to turn some foods that he said were unclean to something that is clean. That doesn't make no damn sense whatsoever. So never let a Christian pull that on you. always allow them to, always make them, doesn't allow, make them read this, bro. Make them read all the way to verse 19, because it elaborates on what that vision is talking about, and it tells you who it's specifically talking about. Verse 19, while Peter thought on the vision, the Spirit said unto him, behold, 3 men seek thee. Arise, therefore, and get thee down, and go with them, doubting nothing, for I have sent them. Then Peter went down to the men which were sent unto him from Cornelius, and said, behold, I am he whom ye seek. What is the cause wherefore ye are come? And they said, Cornelius, a centurion, a just man, a righteous man, one that feareth God, and of good report among all the nation of the Jews, was warned from God by an holy angel to send for thee into his house. Wait, by a holy angel to send for thee into his house, and to hear words of thee. Verse 23, then called he them in, and lodged with them. And on the morrow, Peter went away with them, and a certain brethren from Joppa accompanied him. Watch this, right? This is Peter at Caesarea. Peter's going to Caesarea, right? Verse 24, it says, and the morrow, after they entered into Caesarea, and Cornelius waited for them, and had called together his kinsmen and near friends. Now, I'm making this verse right here, verse 24, point 9, right, about why I believe that Cornelius is an Israelite, because you see him calling together his kinsmen and friends. A Christian would argue, okay, just because he was in Caesarea doesn't mean he's a Jew. He could have come from somewhere else. He could come from somewhere else, and then he's just living there. But it says he's calling together his kinsmen, the people, his family members, and his friends. So it's well established that he's lived there, and it's well established that he has family members there. And if this is the ancient city of Israel, who are they? Who are they? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, who are these people? They have to be what? Jews. And then here's the thing: a Christian gonna have to just fumble on that one. I remember when we brought that out to that one that white man out there, live surge. He didn't know what to do with that. He said, "Oh, he could have just migrated there. You know, the Roman army moves from here to there. But okay, if it moves from here to there, and he was never native of Caesarea, why does he have kinsmen that's lived there and friends that's lived there? Those are Jews. Those are Israelites. Like, what are you talking about?" Verse 25, and as Peter was coming in, Cornelius met him and fell down at his feet and worshipped him. But Peter took him up, saying, "Stand up, I myself also am a man." And as he talked with him, he went in and found many that were come together. And he said unto them, "Ye know how that it is an unlawful thing for a man that is a Jew to keep company or come unto one of another nation. But God has shown me that I should not call any man common or unclean." Now, this is where Christians go to basically have a strong point against Hebrew Israelites, to try to say that Cornelius is not an Israelite. But what's bad about this, and I'm making this point 10, what's bad about this is it really supports our point. Because if you look at, if anybody who knows the law, because a Christian is like, "Oh, see, it's against the law for Israelites to not go to other nations." There's no law in the Torah that says we can't go to Gentiles, and in fact, Gentiles lived amongst us. So if there was a law, if there was a law in the Torah, we would have been breaking that. That does not exist. And if you look at the commentaries, I have one pulled up. Like, let's look at this. Right, because this, and it's really this. What this is going into is specifically going into the doctrine of the Pharisees that's been spread throughout of Judea. Right, let's look at this, because this is a commentary on that. And I agree with this to a degree. There's some stuff I don't agree with, but I like the beginning of this, and I like the historical standpoint that it pulls out on it, because I can see that. It says, ye know how that it is an unlawful thing Or no, it's just saying the same thing. Okay, St. Peter speaks from the standpoint of traditional Phariseeism. Phariseeism, the doctrine has been spread throughout Judea, rather than from that of the law itself. Why? Because there's no law saying we can't go into Gentiles. There's none. That does not exist in there. It says, but the feeling was widely diffused, so it just spread. It was ubiquitous. It was everywhere. That we can't just deal with, and then in this context, deal with our people who's not practicing jewelry, who's not native born jewelry, descendants of people who was in jewelry. We have to just forsake these people, right? It says, but the feeling was widely diffused and showed itself in forms more or less rigorous, where the Jews and heathens came into contact with each other. The strict Jew would not enter a Gentile's house, nor sit on the same couch, nor eat or drink of the same vessel, right? So we see, and this is the part I would disagree, because they would say things like this Gentile in this context is in the context of what he's saying right here, is talking about a non-Israelite. But we see that this happens with those who went through the diaspora and those who've been Hellenized. And you see examples of this, and of our people showing partiality to the Jews in Judea versus the Hellenized Jews. And you can see that in Acts chapter 6. I'll give an example of that. Acts chapter 6, verse 1. We can read this in many translations. It's Acts 6 and 1. It's, and in those days, when the number of the disciples was multiplied, there arose a murmuring of the Grecians against the Hebrews, because their widows were neglected in the daily menstruation. So it's like these Grecians, these specific Grecians right here, which really is Hellenized Jews, they were getting treated, their wives were getting treated differently and shown less respect than the Jews that were in Judea. The wives of the Jews that were in Judea. And we know that through what this word means right here, which means Hellenized Jew, and we can look at it in the other translations. We look at this in, let's see, the Hellenist, like even in the New King James, where it says against, let's see, there arose a complaint against the Hebrews by the Hellenists, because they're like, oh, look at that. It even says that is Greek-speaking Jews, literally, because their widows were neglected in daily distribution. See, NLT, Greek-speaking believers. There was a better one. Hellenistic Jews. I'll read NLT too. It says, and in those days, when the number of disciples was increasing, the Hellenistic Jews, what did that say? Look at that. That is Jews who had adopted the Greek language and culture. That goes right along with the point too. Among them, complained against the Hebraic Jews because their widows were being overlooked in the daily distribution of food. I think one says the native. I think that's the one. The Hellenistic Jews, the Hebraic Jews. Ooh, there it is. NASB. Which one is that? New American Standard Bible 2020. It says, now at this time, as the disciples were increasing in number, a complaint developed on the part of the Hellenistic Jews against the native Hebrews, because their widows were being overlooked in the daily serving of food. We treated our people differently who've been Hellenized. And I will be through looking at the culture and looking at who Cornelius was, I'm led to believe that he's a Hellenistic Jew, because he's in the Roman army. He was part of the Italian band. We see in history that a lot of Jews who was in the Roman army had Greek and Latin names due to the Greek captivity that they went through. So I'm led to believe that Cornelius has to be a Hellenized Jew. He has to be, because you see in Acts 6 and 1 how there's a discrepancy between them, and you see how Peter even treated them differently in Galatians chapter 2. That's why Paul withstood him to the face, Because like, look, wait, hold, because that's what Paul was like. And I'm paraphrasing. He's like, hold up, man. We were just talking about the Gentiles of our people getting salvation, and you was dealing with them. But when your friends come from Judea, now you want to get away from them. Why? Because you was under that pharisaical mind state of saying, oh, we not about to deal with them. I'm not about to be around them and stuff like that. But now he has a realization in Acts 10. This is him getting that realization that no, I can't be like that because Christ died for them as well. That's why Paul's saying there's no difference between the Jew or the Greek. That's the Greek it's talking about. So let's go back to Acts 10. Right. That's what it means by it's unlawful, because it's that Pharisaical. It's one of those traditions. Because we know it has to be a tradition, because we know there is no law in the Torah that says that. There's no law in the Torah that says you can't be around heathen. They can't. There is none. There's the 7 nations which we can't marry, but it didn't say we can't keep company with them. There's no law saying that. It does not exist. So this is a tradition. And what is that tradition? That Pharisaical mind state of we're not about to deal with these people who went through the Hellenized. It's kind of like we're not about to deal with. It's kind of like how people say we're not about to deal with, like, I guess you could say Oreos in a way, because they still adopted the Greek. They adopted the white man's customs. It's like we're not about to deal with these Oreos. That's really what's happening right here, if you think about it. But going further into this point is or come unto one of another nation. Now right here, let's look at this. It says come unto one of another nation. Let's see, he's another nation. But let's look what this word for another nation is, because it's not Gentile there. It's not ethnos there. It's something different. So let's look at this another nation, because it's a compound word. One of another nation, alophilos. Combination word, right? It means foreign right here. But when you look, and there's only one time in the Bible this is ever translated. But when you look at it, it's a combination word. Let's look at this one. This one just means another or other, right? It just means other. Combined with phile. What does phile mean? Let's see what phile means. A tribe. In the New Testament, all persons descending from one of the 12 tribes, the 12 sons of the patriarch Jacob. That's what that's talking about. You wanted them foreign Israelites. You wanted them niggas who's out there at the damn out there doing shot put and doing naked wrestling with these guys. with these damn crackers, man. That's what this is going to. Because this doesn't literally mean that another nation right here, alophilos or other phile, isn't going into another nation like a heathen. It's going to like another Israelite. That's literally what this says. This isn't me making that. He said that naked, bro. They used to do naked wrestling. Esau would take their clothes off and wrestle like Olympic stuff in the Coliseum, which is, I don't know why, like that don't even seem like something you would want to watch. to be honest. So what he's really saying here, when you go back to this really helps a Hebrew Israelite's point about how this is just a Hellenized Jew, because I'm gonna read it again from the top. We can just break it down. And it says, and he said unto them, ye know it was an unlawful thing for a man that is a Jew to keep company or come unto one of another nation. There is no law that says that. But we see in the historical context, Hellenized Jews getting treated differently than native Israelites, right? And it says, come unto one of another nation. That other nation right there, literally is compound word, another phile, alophilos, another phile, a different type of Israelite. That's really what it's going to, a different type of Israelite. Like we're not supposed to be dealing with y'all. And then it's like, why? Because the Pharisees said so. But it's saying, but God have showed me that I should not call any man common or unclean, rather. And this doesn't mean everybody, because certain people, because matter of fact, let me just dial that back, man. This is specifically just talking about Jews, because that if we're gonna run with that all, meaning all in that context, that's now gonna that would now supersede all the prophecies, and that doesn't make no sense. God does not change. So this all right here is talking about the Hellenized Jews and the ones that got dispersed through the Ezra diaspora. Like when we got rid of all of our children at that time, like Ezra, was that? Is it Ezra 9 or Nehemiah 9? I forgot which one off the top of my head. But that's what that's going into. That's what Acts 10 is going into. A Hellenized Jew coming unto Peter, and Peter getting shown that we got to get out of this Pharisaical mindset and these traditions, which Christ also dispelled the entire time of his ministry. Like in Mark chapter 7 about the washing of hands. Like, why did your disciples eat with unwashed hands? Why do they go against traditions of the elders? And Christ snapped back at them and saying, like, well, why do you transgress the commandments of God through your traditions? Christ went against these traditions. And he let this vision happen to Peter and put the Spirit on him to understand that after Christ died, now the rest of our brethren who've been scattered throughout the diaspora and through the Hellenistic time period that we went through, that they can all come back in and we can all be one body again. That's what this is going into. John 3:16. That's the breakdown in Acts chapter 10. John 3:16. For God so loved the world cosmos, that he gave his only begotten son. Christ died so all Israel can be saved. That's what this is going into. Not anybody can be saved now. Not you can eat pork now. That none of that is biblical at all. But that's pretty much it on that. I definitely done went over on my time. So I want to say, call all Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai. I want to say shalom to all Israel out there. Follow us on Facebook, IG, Spotify. Follow us on TikTok too. Matati has been taking off on there. What is there? Anything else? Oh, and look out for our new channel we got coming up with just straight breakdowns. And we're gonna have this channel with breakdowns and street videos, but we're gonna have another channel, the Sakari DTX Study Hall, with just breakdowns. So with that, I'm going to say shalom again. All praise to the Lord. And I pray y'all are edified.